Okay, so hilarious story. I was trying to post this video after shooting it 3 times because I couldn't stop stuttering and I deleted it. So we're gonna try again. This week's video is about one of my favorite philosophers from 2,400 years ago, Plato. Plato had described what's called the Allegory of the Cave, and it's meant to be a metaphor for life today. So envision with me, very enthusiastically, because I've done this so many times, that you and a couple other people were prisoners from the time you were born. Your head was in a fixed and locked position so that you could only look straight ahead at a wall. You couldn't turn your head. You couldn't even look at the prisoners next to you. You could only face the wall and see what was cast on the wall. Behind you, there's a bridge, and beyond the bridge is a fire. Anything that passed over that bridge would cast shadows on the wall that you were staring at. Over time, you and the prisoners developed a language so that you could talk, and you began to name the things that passed over the wall. A cow might walk across the bridge. The prisoners would see the cow, his shadow on the wall, and name it cow. They would see a woman pass over the bridge. They would look at the shadow and name it woman. To them, the shadow of the woman on the wall was real. She was what a woman was. She was not a shadow. She was a woman. They had no concept of like a flesh and blood woman, okay? Over time, finally, you escape, or one of the prisoners, so it doesn't have to be you. The prisoner escapes, okay? He escapes, he runs outside, and he is completely disoriented because the sunlight is so bright. He begins to look around and see things and realize the sun is shining on that tree and the tree is casting a shadow. What I would have called a tree before is actually just a shadow of a tree. It isn't reality at all. He got so excited in seeing all of this that he ran back into the cave to the prisoners that were with him his entire life and began to share the truth with them. Surprisingly enough, they didn't want to hear it. They did not believe what he was saying to them. He was like, no, you don't understand. There's a bridge and there's a fire and it's casting shadows on the wall that you're looking at. And they just completely rejected what he had to say. They wouldn't hear it. Now, when we are talking about truth versus talking about seeing shadows and thinking that the shadows that we're seeing are truth, what does that mean? Now, returning to the book of Genesis that we talked about last week, we didn't talk to it, that we talked about last week, Adam and Eve are said to be created in the image and likeness of God. What that doesn't mean is that we look like God. God probably doesn't have eyes, a nose, a mouth, or hands, or anything like that. He probably doesn't use any of the senses that we use. He probably doesn't use sight. He probably doesn't taste things, probably because he doesn't need to eat. We don't look like God. We're made in the image and likeness. So what does that mean? We can love truly and deeply. We can recognize that there is something beyond our reality, beyond ourselves. We all feel it. And you might say, like, I don't feel anything. Well, these are my favorite questions to ask. Have you ever seen a perfect person? Like just flawless, perfect. And you're probably saying no. And then I would ask you, how do you know you have never seen a perfect person? And everyone usually responds, because there's nothing perfect. Okay, well, you've never seen anything perfect and you know nothing on earth can be perfect. How do you know what perfect is? How is that even something that you strive for? It is because you can recognize that there is something beyond yourself. There is a perfection beyond yourself. Those prisoners couldn't recognize that there was a perfection beyond the shadow that they were seeing, but we have the capacity to recognize that. Another question. Have you ever, even in your happiest moments, just felt this pulling like you're not home, like you're not where you're supposed to be? It's almost like this, it's just like a constant discomfort, like I am here, but I don't feel like I'm supposed to be here. We'll talk about these more later also, by the way. what are called transcendentals, which just basically means that you're transcending, you're moving towards God in a natural way. We have these markers inside of us that reflect that we are made in the image and likeness of God. So, returning back to that question, what is truth? And is it dangerous to share truth with other people? Truth is recognizing that there is more to you than just what you can see. There's a value that you have that can never be tarnished. And how dangerous is it to speak truth? So let me ask you this. Would you want to be the prisoner that got free or the prisoner that remained seeing shadows? Would you want to be the person that sees the value in all things? Or do you want to be the person whose happiness relies on clothes, food, sex, alcohol, or what's most prevalent nowadays, attention? We all know those people who live for attention from other people, or they have that desire to always be better than the person next to them. They never have that feeling inside of them where they're truly happy for the accomplishments of others because they want that attention. That's where their happiness comes from. Maybe we're that person. Maybe we're the person that we need to see ourselves prettier or more athletic. And, there's a lot of people too that they see themselves as more holy than the person next to them. Maybe that's how they need to see themselves. What we need to be sharing with others is that they are already like a golden treasure, so to speak. And they may not want to accept that, because recognizing that you have value and that you've had value from conception is hard because it dictates how you behave. Earthly stuff is easy. It's very simple to constantly chase earthly happiness, things, attention, comparing yourselves to others. And, like for example, we know all those people that are striving for Instagram likes, and that's where their happiness comes from. But we will do that because everybody around us does it. We may know that we're meant to love everybody, but everyone around us is talking crap, and we do it too. We may know that buying clothes or drinking or talking back to our parents won't make us happy, but doing those things is way easier than changing our behavior, not feeding our egos, okay? So we may know that we are the happiest when we spend quality time with family and we avoid certain relationships that are unhealthy, but we don't do it because it's hard. The truth is, it is easier to stay in the dark than to change yourself. Now, next week, I want to talk about Aristotle, who dives deeper into these levels of happiness that he explains. Basically, there's 4 levels of happiness, and I love talking about this because it is so relevant to today. But for right now, I want you to really think about Plato and his Allegory of the Cave and what kind of message he is delivering to you about truth. And I really want you to think about what prisoner you are. So answer the questions, and until next week with Aristotle. Bye.